Okay, welcome to the class Enterprise Architecture. This session is about Zachman framework, and I am Amina Amiri, an assistant professor of information system at Tilburg University. I joined Tilburg University in 2018. I got my PhD from Canada, University of British Columbia, and I have been teaching since 2005, and specifically enterprise architecture. I've been teaching that since 2008, I guess. Here at Tilburg, I teach IT strategy, Python, and enterprise architecture. And this is my handler on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Please make sure to follow me there. I need followers. And these are my area of research, IT business alignment, anything related to chief information officer, is interesting to me. IT strategy these days, big data strategy, data quality, communication with top management team, and strategic risks. From the past, previous years, I know that most students don't have, the prior knowledge for this, session. So I have to go over some, materials myself. For example, entity relationship model, around 60% of the students know that, or BPM, and only 50% know what BPM is and work with that. Or most students, they don't know database design. So you have to bear with me so that, I can explain these to those students who may not know them, in greater detail. But again, I'm not going to teach these. I'm just going to give you some ideas about them. And for the assignment, you just need those ideas. You don't need to do, everything, in a great and accurate way. But you can see, how students, where the students are coming from, what their backgrounds are. Okay, today's lecture is about Zachman framework. There are 3 versions of Zachman framework. For this lecture, I am, focusing only on the first 3 columns and mostly on the first 3 rows. We learned about, in a way, the version in 1987, but I give you some ideas about the version 2008 as well. So for today, we learned what enterprise architecture is. We learned about Zachman's enterprise architecture framework. We learned about data models, process models, and network models. Before going to the depths of this, I have a special assignment for you. I would like you to describe Canvas to me in 1 or 2 lines. I guess most of you work with Canvas, huh? Use the chat section and describe what Canvas is. Assume that I am, a new student. I don't know what Canvas is, so try to explain that to me. Or you can also, unmute yourself and, describe it to us. Yusra says it's an operational support system. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, she shows that she took my course on IT strategy. But what is Canvas? Any brave students to explain what Canvas is? Mohammed says it's a learning management system. Okay, good. So you tell your student peer that it's a learning management system. Do you think he would understand that, Mohammed? Yusuf says, central place for students where they can find information about their courses. Nice. So we start with Mohammed's, definition of, it's a learning management system, and we add Yusuf's description of, being a central place for students to get information about courses. So we can do the same for Osiris, and we can also do the same for Tilburg University in general. So these enterprise architecture and Zachman framework is about describing an organization or an information system. So we want to know how we can describe Canvas, how we can describe Cyrus, how we can describe Tilburg University, so that we can create business applications for these universities, or we can create strategies for university, or do any kind of changes. Okay, what is an enterprise architecture? First, you need to know that there are two main views of enterprise architecture in reality. One view is, created by John Zachman, and the other one by Gina Ross. You're going to learn about, her view of enterprise architecture in the next sessions. In this session, we learn about John Zachman's view of enterprise architecture, and his view is, a modeling view of enterprise architecture, if I want to put it in 2 words. What is a model? A model is also called artifacts. They are mostly diagrams, which are visual descriptions of an enterprise and organization. But artifacts or models can also be tables or list of things. And most of you are already familiar with some organizational models that we use in reality. So, for example, organizational charts, you have a board at the top, then a chief executive officer at the helm of the organization, and there are 4, organizational roles working under the CEO, like chief operating officer, chief financial officer, chief marketing officer, and chief information officer. And under these, you have other people working on. So this is called organizational chart. It's a diagram, it's a visual description of an aspect of the organization. You may also be familiar with business processes. For example, this is a business process for taking a course. First, you need to register for a course, then you need to learn materials, and afterwards you need to take exams. So there are several steps. There is a beginning and there is an end. This is called a business process, and this is a visual description of a business process for taking a course. What is enterprise architecture, or EA? EA is a combination of tens of artifacts or even thousands of artifacts that describe either an organization, a business, or only a system like Canvas or like Osiris. But usually when we say enterprise architecture, we mean the entire business and the systems inside that business. But the scope of that business can be, your choice. For example, you can only choose Tilburg, School of Management, TISEM, or you can choose the scope of the university. So that what the business is, what the organization is your choice. But you want to describe that using various models, tables, and lists. But this is called enterprise architecture from Zachman's point of view. What is an enterprise architecture framework? This a framework, so because Zachman, I call that a Zachman framework. A framework shows what artifacts you need to create to be able to describe an organization and its systems. Or sometimes they don't specify the artifact, the diagram itself, they just provide the general information. They would say that what type of artifact you need to create. Sometimes some frameworks also provide in what order they need to be created. For example, Zachman framework only says what type of artifacts you should create. But TOGAF, another framework, it also says, in what order you need to create them. And sometimes some of them even, help you with figuring out who should create these artifacts. So whenever we say enterprise architecture framework, we mean that, there are suggestions for artifacts to be created. Okay, what is Zachman framework now? So first off, you need to know that Zachman doesn't suggest any diagrams. It just suggests what types of diagrams, models you should create so that you have a complete picture of an organization and its information technology. Zachman says that I I have a table here, I suggest this table. Over the years, these tables, grew and changed. He suggests that you need to have at least one diagram for each cell in this table. Otherwise, you cannot completely describe an organization. So in 1987 and 1992, he called this framework, IS architecture or IT architecture, because he thought that he can only use this framework to completely describe an information system. But later, he noticed that this can also be true for the entire organization and all the systems inside that organization, not just information system, but also manufacturing system, transportation system, and so on and so forth. So he said that from now on, I call this enterprise architecture. And this is, the models that you need to create so that, you can understand all the systems in that organization and the organization itself. Zachman had this chemistry background, so he created this diagram, this framework using the periodic table. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the periodic table, but you know that we have all the elements that exist in the world in this table. And even using this table, Mendeleev, the creator of this table, suggested that we are having some new elements that we haven't seen yet, we haven't discovered yet. So the benefits of this periodic table was that it organized the current elements exist in the world, and it also predicted the existence of some unknown elements. And Zachman did the same thing for our field in the field of information systems. He created this diagram, this framework. He suggested that we can organize all the artifacts, all the models using this, but he also predicted that there are some models that we haven't developed by 1992, by 1997, for example. So afterwards, we have seen many other types of models being created so that we could describe information systems and the organization. So this is the role of the Zachman framework. So to describe an information system like Canvas, like Osiris, or Tilburg University, Zachman says that you need to first answer six type of questions using these primitive interrogatives, like what, how, where, who, when, and why. And by that, he meant that for Canvas, you need to say what kind of data Canvas works on. You said, for example, courses. That's what Yusuf said, huh? Or what kind of functionalities Canvas provides, like register, providing, for example, downloading a lecture. What kind of locations that system supports, or that enterprise do business in. The people in that information system or in that organization, the organizational roles, the important times, and also the goals and strategies. At the same time, Zachman said that each stakeholder in the organization answers these questions differently and requires descriptions at different levels. So he said that we have 6 important stakeholders for an information systems, and then for any system in general. The first is, he called him planner, but later he changed that to executives, which means that the view of the executives in an organization, the chief executive officer, the board, and those top executives in the organization. Afterward, he said that these questions can be answered or should be described differently for the owners of those specific units. He called them owners, but he meant business managers of that specific, unit. Now, after that, those questions can be answered from the architects or designers of those systems in a different way. And then we also have engineers who engineered those processes or created those software applications or plants or machines. And then those people, they designed them, for that specific technology. And then we also have those developers, technicians view. And then the last perspective is the perspective of the users of those applications. I'm going to go to the detail of these, providing an example for each cell here, so that you can have a better understanding of what these mean. In the meantime, I want to ask a question. So, are people supposed to use this framework prior to developing system or after they have already developed them? Andre, these years we use them for both. If we want to understand an existing system, we use Zachman framework to describe what the existing systems are. Sometimes we want to develop a new system, then we also use Zachman framework and the models, he suggested. Again, he didn't suggest a model. He says that you need to create this kind of, models. So now let's get back to Canvas. And I would like to know who are the stakeholders of Canvas. So for example, as for this first row, the executives, who is the stakeholder at the university? Who can you call? The planner of Canvas here. Planner means, long-term planner of that business or organization. Any ideas? University management, like exactly, board of the university, great. So these are the rectors, for example, and the board of the university. This is their view. Okay, who can we call owners or business managers? Not necessarily CIO, but yeah, you can have CIO here as well. But deans, vice deans of the schools, these are, they have this view of this business model. They are in charge of, developing processes. Of course, they give them to their, subordinates to do that, but they make the judgment. Or the faculty councils, you can even call this, as the business managers. So this is not the executive board, of the university. These are deans and vice deans who create processes and who are in charge of everything. And for Canvas, afterward we have an architect, then we have a software engineer and data engineers and people like that who design the application, and then we have programmers or database developers who created this. And then you are here, I am here at the functioning enterprise. So if you tell me what kind of data Canvas work with, my answers would be different from a technician's point of view, or from an engineer's point, or from the architect's point of view, or from the board's point of view. Each of us will provide different definitions. And if you want to describe what Canvas is, for me, your answer should be different than the answer that you provide to the board. So this is what Zachman says in general. There are different perspectives, and there are several primitive questions. You have to give answer to them to those questions from a perspective of the person who is interested in the description of the organization. Okay, I start with the last row because this is our view, and you can have a better understanding of that. So first, let's see. Again, I'm going to provide a review so that all the students, with different background could understand Zachman better. So first off, let's, the focus is on the functions, and specifically the functions of the, the applications. that we have at the university, and or anything that we would like to define. The polling that I use shows that the survey that the student filled out shows that most of you know Netflix. That's why I'm using Netflix here. You see that, in Netflix is an application. It has a graphical user interface. You do signing here afterward. You choose a profile. For example, this is me, Amin. And then afterward, I can click on a movie or search for a movie or TV shows and then, watch that. So this is an application. This is you as an application user. See, this is your view of Netflix. But the view of the Netflix from manager's point of view can be different, from the programmer's point of view can be different. But this is our view. We also have a database user at the organization who deals with data at the function enterprise level. So he's not the designer. She's not the designer of this application. She just has access to all these. And this is her or his view of organization from the data point of view. For example, for Netflix, we have an account table from his view. This table has a username, which is the email of that person. It's called AC username, account username. And this one has this person has a password. So this is my password on Netflix, you can use it. And this is my account ID, assuming, supposedly on Netflix. And this is the second person, third person, fourth. So these are all the accounts that we have on Netflix. We also have different languages supported on Netflix, and that database user can have access to that. So you would see that English, Netherlands, and Chinese here. So there is an English name and the name of that, language itself, in the language itself, and also language ID. And then you just saw that an account, after you provide username and password, you have seen four profiles, huh? You see here, this is my son, my wife, and myself, and this is my future kid, huh? So you would see here that this person, which is me, Amin, and my son and my wife, we all belong to this account. So when we see 111 here, this means account ID number 1. And you can see that Amin and my wife, my wife and I, we speak English, but my son speaks Dutch. So these 2 here means that 2 in the language ID and 1 in the language ID, which is English. And here we say that, okay, Amin is not a kid, Hoda is not a kid, but my son Taha is a kid. So this is the view of the database user. But we also have network users, in the organization, and their view can also be different. So when you try to provide your username and password on, mobile, on your cell phone, or on web, you provide username and password here, and this go through internet to reach the server software application of Netflix. So this Chris and Love 123 will be given to here, and then this application turns that to a new language, another language called SQL. You don't need to learn this, huh? Just know that it exists. It's written like that, Chris username, Love123 password in that database. And then this database says if this is found, a record like that exists or not. And then the result is turned to a new language called HTML. That is going to be returned through the internet to the same application, and the application used that to show you a page. So this is what happens, in the real world. Someone from the network's point of view has this, cell phone here, has the internet here, has this node, a computer server, a database server. So 4 nodes, 3 or 4 nodes here, and this is his or her view of, Netflix. So you can see that different questions has different, answers from the function enterprise perspective. Okay, Steph says that, how would you name this kind of model? Whoever creates them names them. So it has been like that, for a long time. So now, I would like to focus on the what column, the first column. We just saw the data, the answer to data, the description of data in Netflix from a function enterprise view, from a user's point of view. We just saw all these. And I would like to also tell you what primary key is. Primary key is, a unique value in that column. That means that that column cannot be left empty, one. And second, there can't be a repeated value here. It's like your student number. We can have 2 persons, 2 rows with the same student number. So this is called primary key. Account ID is a primary key here, and language ID is a primary key here. If you use the primary key, if you refer to these primary keys in other tables in a second table, which I can call a child table, these columns are called foreign keys. That means they are primary keys in another table. So you just need to know these notions. So this is what we just learned about this perspective. Let's take a look at the perspective of the deans of the schools. The boards, the chief executives. Here, Zachman says that you just need to provide a list of important data for business and for that perspective. What data are used in an enterprise? You need to provide an answer for that. On Netflix, you can say that to their people, to the executive board, the number of movies is important to them, the number of accounts is important, the number of TV series, genres that they have, and payment. These are the data that they care about them a lot. And let's call these data entities. Account is a data entity, movie is a data entity. What are the data entities of Canvas from the board's point of view, in your opinion? Do you have any examples for that? A list of important data entities for Tilburg University or in Canvas. Can you use the chat section to provide examples? Courses, great. So course, students, good job. Exactly, we care about the amount of students and the amount of courses that we deliver at Tilburg University. Also grades, So these are important. Perhaps grade is not that important from this perspective. So it's a matter of perspective. What are importance to those people? And how about Domino Pizza? What are the important data entities for Domino Pizza? Customer, good one. Sales, orders, great. Exactly. So these are the important data entities for Domino Pizza. Let's go to the next stakeholder. The next stakeholder, which is the deans or the vice deans, they don't just care about the important data entities. They also care about the relationship between these data entities. For example, they want at Netflix, these people, because they design the business process, they are in charge of the business processes. They would say that for each account, I would like to know the associated profiles. Amin Hodataha, and all the profiles here. I would like to know if it's a kid or not, if that profile. I would like to know the username and password. I would like to know, so if we have a movie or TV show, I'm going to call it watchable. And I would like to know that if watchable, this movie belongs to what genres, or what is the maturity rating of this movie. So he not only cares about, those important data entities, but he also wants to know, to store information about the relationship between these data entities and also the important attributes. So he says that for a movie, I would like to know name, story of the movie, and trailers that exist for that movie, how many stars received, and also the year and the length. For a TV show, not only I want to know the name and story and trailers, I want to store them somewhere. I also want to know the number of seasons. And then for that TV show, I would like to know how many seasons they have and what are the attributes of that season. And that season, again, it has several episodes. So not only I want to know the attributes of the entities, that means the information pieces about those entities, I also want to know the relationships between these, which means that for an instance of a language, how many profiles do I have? So I would say that for a language, there can be several profiles all over the world that, that would choose that language for themselves. But for a profile at Netflix, this is the business process designer, This is the owner. He says that each profile can only have one language. You cannot support two languages for a profile, at one moment. Or he says that an account can have several profiles, but the profile needs to belong to only one account. You see this is one here. Or you would say that a movie, a TV show can only have one maturity rating, like R, 13 plus, 18 plus, or 16 plus. But a maturity rating can have many associated movies. So they would write down these relationship, and that shows that how the manager, the owner, wants the enterprise to be like from the data point of view. When it says that an account can have several profiles, another, for example, Amazon Prime can say that no, each account can only have one profile. So that's the way that you want your business to work. So you choose it like this. So this can change from business to business. A new business like Amazon Prime may add a new entity because they care about another important thing, for example. So this is not a complete, conceptual data model. So this is conceptual data model. It's not complete, but you get the idea of how it looks like, what a conceptual data model is. It's also called entity relationship model. Why they call it entity relationship model? Because this is created before Zachman suggested, his framework. So the model existed before that. It was called entity relationship model. And then when Zachman provided, his, view of things, said, oh, let's call this a conceptual data model, or entity relationship model is an example of a conceptual data model. Jasper asked a question, do we need to design a conceptual data model or only comprehend it? I guess for the assignment, you need to create something like this, but it shouldn't be, very, accurate, as the accuracy of someone who has studied. You just need to show that you have a good understanding of conceptual data model and what they are. Okay, let's go to the next one. So you see that this is a language. If so you see this is a description. And this description has a grammar. This language has a grammar. What is that? We have an entity or data entity. It's a rectangle with a name in capital letters, like genre. Oh, I should have, see here, I did a mistake in my language. It's as if I didn't use English correctly. So genre, profile, account, these are entities. Then there are attributes like name, English name, username, and password, which are an item in a rectangle. And they're started with a capital letter, but they are inside, written inside the rectangle under the name of the entity. And we have relationships, and there are several other things that we don't care. It's just there for you to have a better understanding of this grammar. So each model that we create, each artifact that we create, it has a grammar for itself. So let's try to create part of the conceptual data model for Domino Pizza. I explain here how you can find entities, but this can be useful for your assignment. But to have a better understanding of an ER model or a conceptual data model, I have created this, and I have provided some instances here. For example, for menu item, Hawaii pizza, margarita pizza, spicy chicken pizza. What are the attributes of menu item? You have an example. I'm going to give you the first one. It's name, menu name, menu item name. What's the next one? Price, exactly, good one. Discount, yeah, nice. So there are several attributes for this. And we also have a list, signature, meat lovers, top taste pizza, favorite pizza, and things like that. List name is one attribute of that. How about order? What are the attributes of orders? Date. Quantity is not an attribute of order or menu item. It's here. It's an attribute of a relationship, because you would say that this order has 2 of this menu item. This order has 1 of this menu item. Order ID, order number, good, total price, exactly. Client name, yeah, we can add that as well. Good one. What else can you put here? So order has a relationship with what that Domino Pizza wants to store information about. User account, good. Client, good. So yeah, we can have a kind of user account or client here. The user account can have several orders. Okay, but this is what I have created. As you can see here, I put a store here. And you can see that there is a kind of relationship between these two. So I'm not going to show them to you, but let's figure out the relationship between the list and menu item. For an instance of a list like top taste pizza, do I have only one menu item or several menu items? For vegan pizzas, several, exactly. So you need to put an N here. Okay, a list like Hawaii or margarita, that menu item can belong to only one list or several lists. Jordan says one, Steph says several. So you are the owner, you can make that decision. The current owner of the Domino Pizza, they said that a menu item can belong to several lists. So both your answers can be correct, but this is what the owners of Domino Pizza decide. How about menu item and order? For each order, so on your receipt, you get a bill, a receipt from Domino Pizza for what you do. For an order, how many menu items do you have? You can have several. So you need to put an N here. A menu item is on a receipt in an order. Can a menu item be repeated in a receipt. That means there's only one menu item in a receipt, or it can be several. That menu item, like Hawaii, is repeated several times in the order. The current version, you can have your own answers, but the current version, on the order receipt, you only see the Hawaii pizza only once, but you would see a quantity next to that. For example, 2 Hawaii pizza, but the Hawaii pizza itself is repeated only once. So we can have different, versions of this. So this is my understanding of how Domino Pizza, created is, its relational model. For each store, we have several orders, but an order belongs to only one store, associated with only one store. We can have a menu item can be repeated in several orders, but an order can only have one example of that menu item, or it can be, several examples. So again, this can be correct in one case or incorrect for another case. We don't care about that. We just want to have an understanding of this. And for the assignment, it's also like that. You would see what it says, and then you have your explain your assumptions, and then you provide a diagram for the conceptual model. Okay, see, then we have the logical data model, which is the perspective of the designer of system or the architect of the system. In this model, you cannot have a many-to-many end-to-end relationship. That means that you need to turn all many-to-many relationships to one-to-many relationship or one-to-one relationships. And you also need to specify primary keys and foreign keys. So for account, you provide account ID, language ID, genre ID. So you try to specify primary keys wherever possible. So you can see here, I have an account, I have a language and profile. And this is, in a way, the head of the table that I just show you, or the review, or the movies. So you do all these, but you also have arrows there. Arrows are from the foreign keys to the primary keys. So if I have an account ID, that account ID is repeated in the profile section. So this is Taha, my son. This is his profile name. It belongs to account ID number 1. Also, my wife belongs to account ID number 1. I am also belong to account number ID 1. And this 1 is explained here in the account table. So this is the logical point of view. For the assignment, what you need to, what is important is that you need to find primary keys and foreign keys, and you don't have any many-to-many relationships. So you can see here that we have, again, a grammar there. Each of these are called relation. Rather than call it table, they called it a relation. And then a relation also has several attributes, as you can see. One of them is the primary key, and the primary keys are underscored, as you can see. If the combination of 2 fields are, primary key, then both are underscored. But foreign key, you can see that foreign keys and primary keys are connected to each other using the arrows, and the arrows point to the primary keys. So let's do this so that we can have an understanding of this mapping. You just saw this Domino Pizza's ER model, and I would like to turn this into a logical data model, turn this conceptual model to a logical data model. You can see that for each entity in the diagram, I have one relation or one table. You see that? But for each many-to-many relationship, for each end-to-end relationship, I also have a table. So you see that between order and menu item, I created a new table, a new relation called order menu item. I also created a one for menu item and list. I called that list menu item. So what you need to do is that you need to specify the primary keys. Here, order has a primary key called order ID. But menu item doesn't have a primary key. I wasn't able to find it while I was describing the system there. Menu item ID is added by me as an architect. You see, the business manager, he didn't have a menu item ID. I, as a designer, I will, as the architect, I add this menu item ID here. So this is the difference between my perspective and the perspective of the business owner. Or I am going to add the store ID as a foreign key to order, because whenever you see N to 1 to N relationship, the one that is on the side, the one that has N on its side, has to borrow the primary key of the one on the N. So you see that I borrowed the store ID and I put it here. And I need to do again for others. Whenever we have many-to-many relationship, we are going to have a new relation, order menu item, and it gets IDs from both parts. So I have order menu item. What happens here? Here, I need to put order ID and then draw this arrow, menu item ID here, and then draw this arrow, and then the number size, I will put it here. What do you do for list? What should I put here in this section as the first attribute of list? Exactly, list ID, list name. It doesn't have an ID, so I force the ID here, list. Then I have a list, I have a name here, I put name here, Good. Now, this relationship between list and menu item is many to many. So I need to create a new table, a new relation. So what should I put here as the first attributes of this table, this menu item? It needs to borrow the primary key of the two connected and data entities, What is the primary key of list? List ID. So I have to put list ID here. What is the primary key of menu item? Menu item ID. So I have to put menu item ID here as well. And this is going to be the answer. So after you create your ER diagram, your conceptual model, then you create this relational model, which is so it should look like this, and you need to make it as close to as accurate as possible. But these are taught over one semester, and I cannot expect you to learn all these. So you just need to make it as close as possible to this. These, you need to follow the rules as much as you can. But if you want to know more, you can read this process of mapping. Okay, how about from the data engineer's point of view? So you see that data engineer has the same thing. It's almost like the model that you have created here, but he also adds technology-specific information. For example, if this model has to be implemented in Oracle database, then he uses number. It's a 12-digit number, and there are no, point after the there are no decimal points. Or this is a text. It's called varchar, and there are 25. There can be 25 characters. Or password cannot be null. So, or here it says that for iskit, the domain is N or Y. That means that the database user can only add N or Y. It cannot write down yes or no. And the default is no. The the value, if you don't enter it, it would be N, which means it's not a key. So you can see here, if this was Microsoft Access, then I had to write down just number here and in parentheses int. And rather than writing varchar, I should have write down text or short text. And also default would be like that. So you don't need to create physical data model for the assignment, but you just need to know how it looks like. You see that I add things related to the target technology. And afterward, you can see that the database developer will use these SQL or SQL to create those tables in the database. Again, you don't need to learn SQL. You just need to know that they exist. So what happened here? I just want to give you a summary. From a business manager's perspective, the conceptual data model which is called entity relationship model is created. That model itself is turned into a relational model, but keep in mind that we also have hierarchical model and graph model. I haven't taught you. But for the example of that cell in the Zachman framework, I taught you relational model. Then I turned that relational model to an Oracle model, not MySQL, Postgres, or Access. And then I wrote down the Oracle SQL. And then from the user's perspective, you would see the tables, which are the Oracle tables. To give you a summary again, you would see that here I only have the list of important information. Here I have a conceptual model that has many-to-many relationship, and we call that design independent, so because you can turn this model to any kind of logical data model that you want. As an example for logical data model, I show you this relation model, which you don't have any many-to-many relationship, but you have to specify foreign keys and primary keys. And this is technology independent. From the engineer's point of view, you also need to add data types, for example, number and varchar. So this model is technology dependent. Then you turn that to SQL and then tables. Any questions so far? You can unmute yourself and tell me if you have any questions. No? So before I explain the how column and some examples, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Please get back at 11:45 and then we continue this. Okay, so we just learned about the what column. Now we want to learn about Zachman's how column. About 4 or 5 slides ago, I explained this function or the applications. What application users see. You saw that you have the functionality of signing in to Netflix. You have the functionality of watching a movie. You can add a new profile. So these are various functions that are provided to you through this application by Netflix. Now we would like to know someone at the top of Netflix or at the top of the university just wants to know to have a list of important functions for that business. For example, for Netflix, registration is important. This is a function that needs to be added. Adding payment method, adding movies, charging accounts, liking a movie, and also watching a movie. These are the functionalities that the Netflix needs to have. Adding movies is for the managers, watching movies is for you and me. So let's call these functionalities use cases or processes. What are the use cases in Canvas? What kind of functionalities do you have in Canvas? You see, there's a difference between data and function. Data is a countable noun most of the time. Function is a verb plus a countable noun most of the time, or sometimes just a verb. For example, charging accounts, or liking movies, or watching movies and TV series. So you see, these are how you can differentiate between a function and a data or data entity. So what are the functions in Canvas? What functions do we have in Canvas? Submitting assignments, great. Grading, good one. Grading for instructors, submitting assignments for students. What else? Downloading materials, for example, creating modules, good one. So these are the use cases. Post announcements, great. So these are the use cases that we have, in Canvas or for the university. What are the use cases in Domino Pizza, in your opinion? What kind of functions Domino Pizza as a business provide? Or sometimes, even, the website can be seen as a source of functions. Schedule delivery, order pizza, or order something. That's, a use case. Customizing the pizza, good one. This is a function inside ordering. Customizing, good one. Adding payment method, perhaps. You see, Tim, you didn't use a verb. You just said payment methods. It's just a countable noun. To have a function, you need a verb at the beginning. Leaving a tip. Is this a function? Mohammed, you said leaving a tip after ordering. Is this a function that the Domino Pizza wants to provide? Perhaps it's just a step in the ordering function. We have a function called order. One of the steps can be leaving a tip. So whenever we say a function, a process, that means there are several steps for that function to be provided. Okay, let's see an example of functions and their business users. So this view, they only wanted to know the important functions, but the business process model view, not only they want to know the functions, they want to know their business users and the relationships between the users and the functions, and the relationship between functions as well. So you can see here a customer can initiate an order function. She requires the order function. And the order function can have two types: order in person or order online, which means that I have a regular customer and an online customer. Or ordering requires seeing a menu. Ordering requires delivering the order. Ordering, includes, payment as well. But sometimes, you may not, do the payment, through Domino. You may have just some, other ways to get the pizza for free. So there are various things here. You can see that the payment is initiated by the customer, but the bank or the credit card companies are also involved in that functions. But inside the Domino, you would see that Domino provides all these functionalities, from preparing the order, paying, ordering, seeing a menu, delivering orders. These are all the functions that Domino provides for the business users. Also involves others, external actors in this, external actors are involved in the functions as well. So this is the business view, and you can see, a small line here. It shows that it's a business view. That's the difference between business view and system view. One difference is this. So you can see here again, this use case diagram, business use case diagram, also have a grammar. So we have symbols here, and these symbols have meanings and they have names. We use this grammar to create that business use case diagram. But business use case diagram gives us an overall view of how the business looks like. For each of these functions, use cases, we can have also a business activity diagram, which provides a detailed view of that use case. So that process of ordering in person, you can see that several people, several actors inside the Domino organization are involved. A chef, a delivery person, the system itself, and a cashier are involved. And this is also a customer. You can see that the customer starts it, he places an order, the cashier gets the order, he enters the order in the system processes that, it shows the bill, the cashier has to say the cost loud, the customer sees the bill and it pays. You see this plus here, this plus here, that means that inside this payment, this function, this step of payment, there are several other steps. We just don't show them at this moment. There is another business process diagram for that. Or for baking the pizza, you see a plus here. That means that there is another process with several steps for baking the pizza. So if we start a payment, then the cashier prepare the desserts and drinks. The chef will bake the pizza or sandwich. Afterward, when everything, these two can be done in parallel, as you can see. These two are done in parallel. After that, the system stores the order is ready. If it's a delivery, then delivery is being done by the delivery person, or pickup needs to be done. So this is the process. Of course, if you go to the Domino Pizza or you have your own pizza place, you may create another process. So you can always change this process to make your business more competitive in the market. So we had two views for business process. One was the detailed view business activity diagram, and the other one was the abstract view of use case diagram. We have the same diagrams. We have the same diagrams for the system view. The only difference is that we don't have this line here. And the other difference is that you see in the business view, we have people who do things manually, cashier, chef, delivery guy. But in the system view, everything is about that system and nothing else. Andre asked if we cover class diagrams. No, we won't, unfortunately. So you see, this is the Domino website. These are the functionalities provided by the Domino web system. It allows you to log in, to pay online, register, order, find and adding menu items, but you won't see any manual functions here by cashier or by others. Everything is related to only the information system. The registration, logging, and other functionalities are initiated by the user. And for paying online, the functionalities involve the bank system and the credit card company. Or here, the order also involved the Domino store management system, which is a completely different system. And that system itself has several. So we have a Domino store management system use case diagram created for Domino. We have to create that. This is the meaning for that. So again, this is the use case diagram. We only have systems and users and system functionalities here once again. And that's the difference between the designer view and the business view. This order, you can see that I only have one system at this moment, the Domino website. You need to choose pickup or delivery. If it's pickup, you need to provide your zip code or find a store. If it's delivery, you need to get the address. Um, so here you need to choose the store's zip code use by providing the zip code of your, so that you can your zip code, so that it can find the closest store. But for delivery, you need to provide your address, confirm it, and then get a delivery date and time. You get for both of these. And then you need to find and add menu items. I put a plus here. That means it itself has another activity diagram. You provide your name, phone, emails. Then you need to choose a payment method. It's either ideal or credit card, paying online. You see this paying online? Paying online. You see, it has, another business process inside paying online. Or showing it also, if it's cash, it shows your IP address and you have to confirm everything. And then it shows you the current status of the order. After everything is done, then this Domino website will inform the store management system. It sends a message to the store management system because the number of pizzas and everything else should be updated. We just lost several pizzas, for example, in our storage. So the important thing is these, I have pay online, banking system and credit card system are connected here. That means in the activity diagram, you also need to have bank system and credit card company. That means that there must be two other lanes here, banking and credit card. Okay. Then again, this is the engineer view. You don't need to learn this. You turn all those processes to C language, Python language, or any other languages. I guess I put this part, so you, as an engineer, you create this and then you create that program. I have to update this. So in general, what we learned in this how column is that the planner cares about the important processes in an organization, important functions in that organization. Then we have business use case diagram that provides a bird view, an activity diagram which provides details about each item. And we have system diagram and system activity diagrams. So we start with this, we turn that into business diagram, then business diagrams. In the business diagrams, we remove all manual activities so that we can have the system diagrams. And then the system diagrams are turned to flowcharts, and flowcharts are turned into programs. And then you have the apps where you can work with it. Or sometimes you have an app, you want to have an understanding of, you do this in reverse, so that you have some kind of explanation for the business view. So both things are done in the real world, reverse engineering and engineering itself. Okay, this was the how column. Any questions? No? Okay, let's go to the where column. Yeah, Andre said if we cover class diagrams, no, we don't cover class diagrams here. But class diagrams are a combination of the how and what at the same time. But if you twist my hand to choose one place for them, it would be in the how column. And it can be at both levels. Okay. Okay, let me show you this one. This is better. So first, we need to specify the list of important locations. So for the Domino, the important locations are head office, Domino store, for example, and we use them later to create the operational node connective method. So at this level, this is just a planner's view. We don't create anything, We just put, the important locations. What are the important locations for Tilburg University, in your opinion? Campus, Tilburg campus. We also have a campus in Utrecht, so Utrecht campus. Any other locations that, and inside the university, we also have different schools, different buildings, K building, T building, and others. Those are also important to us. So we list all the important locations, and then we use these important locations to create the view of the business owners. So we have for example, for the case of Domino Pizza, we have the head office at Groningen, if I pronounce it correctly, and we have several Domino stores. You would see that the pizza doughs and sauces will go from the head office to the Domino stores, and the Domino stores will, provide, money and purchase info. So they send this here. So the news lines at this level can be both information, money, and materials, as you can see here. But at the system view, you would see that we only have information. At the information system, you would see that the Domino, the web client, we have a client. So we have a Domino web server, and we have a bank server, for example. The web client sends ideal account info to the bank server. The bank server sends payment confirmation to the Domino's web server. Domino web server can, send menus, order status, and stuff to the client. But the web client, like Chrome or the app of Domino, will send order, user pass, and payment info. So the difference between this view and this view is that you only see information, and you only see the systems on servers, various servers in that organization. Here you see real locations. Here you only see locations from the information systems point of view. And you may add port 80 or port 8080. These ports, you can just look for them yourself. They are not necessary, they're optional, but they make things, more accurate and more complete for the system designers. So what we learned so far, let me show you also this. We learned about different types of, models that you need to create in the Zachman framework. We only learned about the first three columns and first three rows. I also give you some ideas about the data and the last three rows, and some ideas about the function column. I didn't provide anything about the where column. So this is what Zachman says. You need to fill all these cells using, a model. Either the model already exists or it doesn't exist. You also need to know that we use some wordings like data architecture. When we say data architecture on Zachman framework, it means, the first four rows and the first column. It's also sometimes called information architecture. When we say business architecture, we mean the first two rows. Sorry. Or application architecture, we mean the third row. Or technology architecture, we mean the fourth row and everything. Sorry. So these are, the various types of architecture that you need to create for this, using the Zachman framework in a way. And you need to create them for the current status of the organization and the future status of the organization. That's what Zachman says. Zachman says that you want to describe a business, use this, you need to create all these models for the current status, describe it. You want to achieve a desired status, again, use all these models to describe that favorite status of the organization or information systems. So with that, we are at the end of this presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know. Let me stop the record.